All right, we're back again for another broadcast on Shark Jockey Weekly. This week, we're going to jump into college football season coming up. We got some predictions for conference champions. We're going to talk about some sleepers. And we're just going to jump on into it this week. Pace and I are back again. So let's go ahead and get this kicked off, Pace. You know, the season around the corner. Teams in a couple of weeks going to start reporting for camp. A lot of people have their predictions. What are you looking for overall from the upcoming college football season?
Truthfully, man, quarterback play. Excuse me. You got a lot of storylines. You got some homegrown talent. You got some teams that bought some quarterbacks. You know what I'm saying? But in particular, it is what it is. You know, that's today's football, and I respect it. Because teams understand like that's the defining piece that's going to put you over the top. Um, Nobody's expecting Patrick Mahomes, but you're expecting guys to make plays and let your playmakers make plays. Because the skill talent is crazy. I mean, yeah, I'm talking from D1 to NAIA. You got guys who play the skill position. You know what I'm saying? So you got to get somebody to get them the ball. So those names are highlighted in Miami's Cam Ward. You got DJU down in Florida State. Um, Ohio State got them a new quarterback. Oregon got a guy, experienced guy. Even UCF got Arkansas's old quarterback in KJ Jefferson. So you got a lot of people, man, that pay good money and they're expecting production.
Well, I'm looking for two things this season. I'm looking for, and we just talked about it, good defensive play, but I'm also looking for what are the coaches going to do? What coaches are going to step up this year? You know, Alabama's got a new coach. You know, they're going to get talent, but how fast can he transition and get out from under the shadow of Nick Saban? And there's some other schools where you're seeing that transition, but also going back to defense. Michigan has a lot of players coming back on their defense. What is that going to mean in that loaded conference when you're talking about adding teams to that conference like USC and some others that are brand new that's going to make it competitive? And just to kind of throw something in there, man, with that, I'm looking for competitive conference play this year. Most of the teams we're probably going to talk about that are going to be in that playoff, I don't see really many teams, if anybody's going to go just undefeated, just because, you know, when you look at the schedules, man, everybody has at minimum 2 to 3 just juggernaut games that are going to hit them in the schedule where you're playing another team that could be ranked in that top 10, that top 8 area that is really going to give the playoffs a major just overhaul over and over, week in and week out. That top 4, top 5 teams could look totally different from almost really from week to week when you look at the schedule. And you got some tough games starting week 1 all the way down to the last week. And you know, we can spend some more time. We're going to jump into that. So let's go ahead and get into it, man. When you look at that college football playoff system, you know, there's a huge emphasis, almost like a requirement on winning your conference championship. But then also there's going to be that last team, that last spot that creeps in. So if you had to break down the big 4 conferences, who do you see being the conference champions coming out of each conference?
Uh, so some of them might surprise you. Some of them you might be with me.
Uh-oh, here we
I think
go.
I got some. I mean, I got some names that I think have built their way up to where they are now. And like I said, I think some teams pay some good money for some players, and it's gonna pay off. I mean, it is what it is, man. You know, and we've had this conversation, man. I want to see everybody get paid, man. You
Yeah,
know, and get that money, man. It is what it
yeah.
is. Business. You know, now they're telling you it's a business, so hey, why not? Why not both sides both benefit this time? So coming out the SEC, I got Texas. I think the quarterback play is going to make the difference. Texas got skilled players. They got 5 stars across the board. Some returning offensive line and a guy named Kelvin Banks. They project him to be first round draft pick. They got a couple question marks on defense, particularly losing to Vondre Sweat and Byron Murphy to the NFL. 1 first round and 1 3rd round pick, and a couple other guys here and there. But I mean, they got guys, man. They got guys all over the field. I think Georgia, who probably will be a lot of people's logical pick. Again, it comes down to quarterback play. I think Quinn Ewers can outduel him. And then with Georgia, man, I think they're talented. I think the defense holds the team up. I don't see them having that guy on the outside at receiver. But Georgia, they're gonna run the ball. They're gonna be physical, so they're gonna be right there. I'm not discrediting them at all. I just think Texas has a little bit more. Coming out the Big Ten, excuse me, I got Oregon. Again, quarterback play. I think the quarterback they bought is better than the quarterback that Ohio State bought, just flat out. I think Dylan Gabriel has played a lot of big time football. And honestly, man, I love Dan Lanning, man. I think he brought a Southern mentality to Oregon, and I think Phil Knight all these years knew, hey, I can beat these West Coast teams, or I can go to the Midwest, but when I come down south, I'm gonna get my head thumped. You know what I'm saying? So why not go get a Kirby disciple? You want to beat Kirby? Go to the guy who was learning up under Kirby to figure out the inner workings of it. He's recruiting all across the board. His top transfers again was Dylan Gabriel, and also got a guy, Evan Turner, wide receiver out of Texas A&M. Again, another projected first-round draft pick, can run every route on the route tree. Got serious game. You know what I'm saying? Serious game. I would say probably for them, the secondary is very solid, man. They got some transfers in there, some guys who play a lot of big-time ball. Last year with 34 sacks on the D-line alone, and they lost a few guys to the draft, so I think that's going to be, they're talented team. It's just about experience, and they'll have some games early where they can kind of get their feet wet, and then they'll start getting in Big Ten play, so you expect them guys to hold up. And then offensive linemen, they got the right and left tackle are projected first-round draft picks as well. So I think they'll be covered across the board. Again, this hasn't really been said a lot, but I think with the Big Ten, I'm kind of getting off topic a little bit. Travel for Oregon scares me because you're coming from the West Coast. That's a long distance away to go to Ohio, Indiana, Wisconsin. It takes a toll on you. You don't think about stuff like that when you're in college because you're playing regional games typically. When we were in college, man, the furthest we went was Hawaii, and that was for a bowl game. We wasn't playing past what?
No further north than maybe Maryland at the time.
At the time, y'all went to Colorado when I was red-shirted, but we wasn't going too far, and I think that's something to really consider, man. But I'll say this, man. The reason why I picked Oregon is I think Dan Lanning is coaching with a lot of confidence. I think he knows he's right there. He spent great money, top-notch facilities. Phil Knight came out and said, man, whatever you need, I got you money-wise. Don't worry about that. Ohio State's the logical second pick. I think they're a playoff team. Don't get me wrong. I think they're a playoff team. I just think with Ryan Day, 3 consecutive 11-2 seasons, and have all in, I think, at the fans' eyes, been disappointment. So let's just be real. He's coaching for his job. And sometimes it works, and then sometimes it doesn't work. You know what I mean? So, but again, Ohio State's talented across the board, man. They got everything you want. They bought them a quarterback as well. I just think the quarterback Oregon bought was better, just flat out, Going to ACC, I got Miami, man. They got a gunslinger in Cam Ward. Talent across the board. They got Damian Martinez, running back from Oregon State, primetime player. They in South Florida, so they got the skilled players. That's never going to be a problem for Miami. And then on the defense, they've got a few transfers who I think are guys who might be NFL players, but more than anything got experience, and I think can shore up some things for them. The biggest question mark for Miami has nothing to do with talent. It's head coach. Mario Cristobal has been known to make a few bonehead errors here and there in terms of just decision-making, late-game decision-making. I think we saw one last year where they could have ran the clock out against Duke, tried to run the ball, they fumble, ended up losing the game. You can't make that mistake as a head coach, just to be real. But I think he gets over the hump this year, and I think they run the table in the ACC. I really do, man. I think they got a talented team, and I think they've been building. Got my boy Jason Taylor down there as a defensive line coach, man, so I know you're probably getting the boys right. And then the Big 12, man, I got a surprise that, people maybe in the Midwest in this area would say, but I'm going with Kansas, man. They got an experienced quarterback. They got a coach who's a program builder. They were 9-4 last year, getting money for new facilities, you know what I'm saying? And teams like that, when you start believing, you infuse some talent with that, you get the community behind you. Anything can happen. And the close second for that conference probably be Kansas State. I like the brand of football. They play good, tough ball. They got a youngster coming in, a quarterback named Avery Johnson, who I think will be an exciting player to watch. But I got Kansas edging them.
So my top conference picks, I got coming out of the SEC, I got Texas. And you talked about Georgia, Texas and Georgia. They play. They got a matchup later in the season, October 19th. That's going to be a good test for where Texas is and where Georgia is, and I think we'll see them. But I think Texas I think they really are building a team to win a national championship. They got some pretty good quarterback play coming back also, but that brand of football that Texas plays kind of mirrors what Georgia plays in terms of they're used to high-level games. And I think this is that year that Texas comes into that conference, and really it's that time for them to make a mark. So I got Texas in the SEC. I got Florida State in the ACC. I think that they're coming in with a chip on their shoulder. The quarterback last year, he was injured, and that impacted them getting to the playoffs. And that impacts when when a team comes back with a chip on their shoulder. Coach got something to prove, and I think they're putting together something special. And again, it comes down to scheduling also, and so we're going to see that matchup with Florida State and Miami October 28th. My birthday weekend. So, again, we're going to get to see that matchup, and I think Florida State might pull that out just because they'll have that extra sort of that emotional and mental impact and want to get over the hump and get back to prove that they deserve to be in the playoffs, and they want to make sure they get in with no questions asked, again, because you have to win that conference now to fit into that top four. Let's go jump to the Big 12. I got sort of a surprise for you. You mentioned Kansas and K-State. I looked at Oklahoma State. They got a good team, and I think that, again, strength of schedule. They got a schedule put together, man, where I think that somebody from the Big 12, if they really pull it together, that might be the only conference where a team can really go undefeated and just run the table if they put it together. But again, when I looked at that schedule, man, they've got an opportunity to really build some momentum going into whoever they play in those big games. Now, what may surprise a lot of people coming out of the Big Ten, my pick for conference champion is going to be Michigan. And I'm picking Michigan simply because I don't think Oregon is ready for that Big Ten type of play week in and week out. It's totally different than what they faced before. And, they went out and got some good players, but have those players really gelled yet? And are they ready for that smash mouth, hit them in the face type of football? Because that Michigan defense, they got a lot of players back. They got one of the best defensive line cores in the country, and they're looking to make a statement again and kind of dominate that conference. So I've got Michigan out of the Big Ten, Oklahoma State out of the Big 12, Florida State out of the ACC, and Texas out of the SEC. Now, every year, Pace, every year, there's going to be a team that comes along, and I don't want to say sleeper, but they can wreak havoc on the playoff and ruin a team's chances to be perfect. And again, with these top four that we talked about, either yours or mine, whichever way you go, there's some teams in that conference that could really battle for those spots. But before I jump into that, I want to talk about who you think that fifth spot would go to. My issue with that fifth spot, and I got an issue with one team that I think really put themselves in a corner each and every year by not joining a conference football-wise, and that's Notre Dame. So you go from prior to this, you got a shot at one of the four spots. But now you reduce that. Now you got to play for that fifth spot because you don't have a conference that you're playing in. Yeah, you play ACC and probably going to continue that USC rivalry. But again, everybody else is coming in with that. So now you got to hope that the second place team in either of those conferences, a Georgia, a Ohio State, or Oregon, or whomever it may be, doesn't automatically knock you out because you're not tied to a conference. So my fifth pick in that slot, I really think is going to come down to Oregon and Georgia. And if I had to pick, I think that people may go with Oregon. I think this might be the year that the second place SEC team gets kept out of the playoff. That's just my opinion on that fifth, that sleeper sort of team.
I say this about Notre Dame, and I don't think I've ever heard anybody say this. But I think with you not being in a conference, historically, right? It's tough to build a brand. Like what do you do?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you just spoke on. Georgia's gonna run the football. They're gonna play good defense. They've always been like that. From Herschel Walker till now. Everybody has something that they do. Miami's gonna have the skilled receivers. It's gonna be fast. The defense is gonna look a certain type of way. So, the reason why I say that is because, one week you're playing Army, you're playing Wake Forest, then you jump to USC. You know what I'm saying? That's a lot of different types of brands of football that you're trying to defend and also to defeat, right? Whereas, again, it's obvious people play teams from different conferences, but we play in the ACC, so we understand what Clemson's trying to do. Clemson understands what we're trying to do, and we devise schemes to try to beat each other, expose each other. I think when you're every week you're changing to so many different styles, and you don't have a brand, and then you have a brand for conferences, right? The SEC, big, fast, and physical. ACC is going to be the same, but it's going to be a little bit smaller on a little less grand scale. You can go all across the board, and I just think when you just keep bouncing around, like I do think from a program perspective, it makes sense to join somewhere. I mean, but they took
Yes.
the money. I mean, it is what it is. They took the money. You know what I'm saying? You got your own network, basically. I mean, you took the money. It is what it is. It's just gonna always be tough to go with Notre Dame or anything. And then we talk amongst peers, and I'm like, if you're you're a 5-star recruit, what will make you go to Notre Dame? And this is no disrespect to Notre Dame. I mean, but like, I think that's gonna always be their dilemma. And I mean, don't get me wrong. Now they can pay, but still, it's got to be some type of attraction for us to go there. And it's been a lot of schools that have had the aura of their brand just switched to somebody else. The same way with Nebraska. When we was growing up, man, Nebraska was, man, you know what I'm saying? Like, but now, I mean, don't get me wrong, they can get some guys. They got a 5-star recruit this year, but that's few and far between, and it's going to be tough to sustain in today's football without. You know what I'm saying? And not to say that you're not going to win games, it's just going to be a struggle for you to get to the playoffs. And then we see what happens when those type teams get there. I mean, they just can't really sustain because, you might be able to get through a quarter or half, and, your top guys is kind of gas. What Georgia got, man, we ain't even put our second string in. They damn near good as our first string. You know what I'm saying? We got some threes out here that really need to play too, but it's too many people in front of them. So, you know how I go, man. You in war, man. It's cool. You got some soldiers, but man, we got an army behind us, man. You know what I'm saying? So, and then, I would say for my pick, I'm gonna give you a real outside one. Ole Miss, man. Ole Miss
Yeah.
got some players. They got a quarterback that'll probably be drafted. Again, it's gonna come down to coaching. Lane Kiffin, for whatever reason, he's fumbled the bag a couple times just in some big games. But this might be a year where they can get in. I mean, you expanded the playoffs. And the truth of it is, I mean, even what I said about a Nebraska type program, Notre Dame, all you want to do is be able to get in the show, because anything can happen at that point. You just want to be able to get in the show. You know what I'm saying? And then I give you some other sleepers that I got in the SEC. I got LSU, talent across the board. I think quarterback play is going to be why they won't probably do it as well as they did last year. You lose Jaden Daniel, number 2 pick. I mean, it's hard to replace that. In the ACC, you said Florida State. I got them as a sleeper. I'm gonna give you one, man. Ain't nobody probably is gonna throw a lot of money on them. SMU, man. SMU got an explosive offense. I think they can knock a couple teams off in our division that probably, don't know much about them. You know what I'm saying? Just gonna be able to kind of come in and win some games. The Big Ten, Nebraska. Nebraska got an easy schedule. They probably can start the season out 7-1, 8-0 before they play USC. And then the Big 12, I went Kansas State and UCF. Gus Malzahn down in UCF always can score points. They recruited well this year. They added. I spoke to it earlier. They added Arkansas's quarterback. He's played a lot of football. Teams like that, man, they'll get hot, man, and you never know. And then you add more playoff spots. Like you said, teams gonna be knocking each other off, and I think the addition of playoff spots basically speaks to that. Like, hey, we know the conferences is gonna change. We know it's gonna be harder matchups, and like you said, Georgia, Texas, man, that's gonna be a hell of a game. But somebody got to lose. It is what it is. But I don't think that
Yeah.
should derail playoff hopes if the rest of the season speaks to a playoff team. So um, I think teams have a different type of motivation this year. I think it's like we've been talking about it. Hey, man, open it up, open it up. Now it's here. Okay, now let's see what y'all can do.
And to your point, man, the scheduling, man, I went through my conference champions and I looked at the schedule, and that's why I was saying I don't think any team's going to really come out unscathed without a loss, without one or two losses. I mean, Texas, you got Michigan week 2 they're playing, and then you got Georgia October 19th. So there it is. You got two teams, even for Michigan, and even for Texas, you're talking about out of conference. You got Michigan week 2, so you've got to strap it up and have it ready and be focused going into camp. And then even later on in the season, when you get rolling, you got to play a Georgia team that's going to be rolling. And I'm not going to underestimate Alabama or some of the other teams, but I just think Texas is going to be tested. But again, when I look at that schedule, I even look at Florida State's schedule. They got that Notre Dame team we talked about. That's late in the season, late in November, where that could be an impactful game. And then they also got that big matchup with Miami October 28th that we talked about. So all of these teams in that top 4 are going to be tested and really going to have to show improve in those games. And then you even looking at Michigan, you got USC, Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, and Michigan State. All of that's what I'm saying. So
Right.
again, man, with this conference realignment, it's going to be more competitive college football week in and week out in these conferences. But I think whoever comes out as conference champion in any of the conferences are going to be tested, tried, and I think we're going to see some really good college football. I'm even interested in a lot of the bowl games because you're going to see a lot of these matchups of those that didn't make the playoff. They're going to be matching up and knocking heads. And I understand, some teams may be affected by, potential draft picks not playing. But still, man, when I look at these scheduling and who could come out as conference champions, I don't think anyone is going to come out with no losses unless you just pull together a hell of a coaching job because everybody's got good coaches, everybody's getting good players. And I think even with the NIL situation, the NIL just simply replaced the facilities arm race that used to happen in the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s, where the same schools we're talking about now that have the NIL money also back then had the facilities that could just put them a little bit ahead of everybody else. And I'm seeing the same schools rise to the occasion. But I think that when I look at that schedule, man, you're talking about early in the season, mid part of the season, and even late in the season, just some great college football in conference where you're going to see these traditions come out of that. You're going to see rivalries created out of this. So I can see where, like in the SEC, you're talking about some of the best, these hotbeds of high school talent. So it's not just playing for the playoffs. You're playing for recruits also. When you're talking Texas, you're essentially talking Texas, Georgia football. You're talking Florida for recruiting with Miami and Florida State. So you're getting a lot of great college football where it's more on the line than just the college football playoffs. And again, you got some new coaches while they still may be with their regular teams, but you got new coaches to the conference. I like Ole Miss. I'm just not sure if Ole Miss is at a point where they're ready to be, at least for me, where I can feel comfortable ranking them ahead of a Georgia or a Texas at this time. Again, I want to see how Kiffin handles these big games that's coming his way. And, they've been getting some talent lately. But again, when they have to strap it up against the Alabamas and others, they start to fall a little short. So I think, man, with these conferences, with this alignment, and that's something else we can kind of talk about. Every time this year, people in the summertime they talk about conference realignment, who's going where. And I read where the SEC has closed their doors. I think that the Big Ten has closed their doors. I think the ACC, with the addition of Cal, you talked about SMU and Stanford. I think we've kind of closed our doors on that. So it's not much realignment that's going to happen for the next few years. And while Florida State was trying to get out of the conference, I don't think that's going to happen, and they're going to have to strap it up. But there's a team in the ACC I think everybody's kind of overlooking, and I think that they play better when they're being overlooked. And I just can't totally look past Clemson wrecking Florida State or Miami's just dominating the conference. And so while they may not have made the big splash with NIL in that area or, going into the portal and getting these great players, I still think that they could be that team that people are sleeping on. And this is probably one of the first off seasons we're not hearing people talk about Dabo and the program. Like you said, Florida State, Miami, they're kind of dominating the off-season conversation. So when you're a program like Clemson, it's still to be respected. I think that, again, they're playing with that chip on their shoulder. And so when you're looking beyond the stats and you can now kind of play with that chip on your shoulder and tell your team everybody's written us off, they don't think we have a chance. And then you can walk into a stadium and knock off a team that people weren't expecting. And when I look at your list and I look at my list, man, it really isn't wrong.
But let me ask you
Any
this,
one of
though,
those
Steve.
come out.
Do you think, and I believe this across the board in all sports, I think you truly can only stay somewhere for so long. Obviously, success is fleeting, man. There's only one Nick Saban. There's only one Bill Belichick. There's only been one Bear Bryant. You can go on down the list. I mean, those are special coaches who did the unthinkable. But everybody else has had their runs, and they just kind of fade away or they retire or the game just passes them by. So for Dabo, for me, you've went through a couple coordinators, and really what I'm trying to get to is like, have you lost your way? And even with that, it's like you're trying to find a way, and then the people, your recruiting pool, like, are they still believing in your brand? You know what I'm saying? Now, don't get me wrong. You hit home runs with Trevor Lawrence. You hit a home run with Deshaun. You hit a home run with Taj Boyd. I mean, Taj Boyd won Dabo a lot of
Yeah.
games. Um, Obviously, DJ didn't work out for whatever reasons. And as it stands now, the young man they got the quarterback right now, just based on the history behind him, it's not working out. You know what I'm saying? Now, from the defensive standpoint, they can recruit defense. Now, they're going to always be in the game because they're talented defensively. But, let's just be real. We've never looked for Clemson for offensive line for the next level. We never looked. I mean, they get a couple guys here and there. They can produce at running back and they can produce at the wide receiver position. You lose Will Shipley in the draft, good player for a long time. Got to replace him. It's just kind of, I don't know, man. And then you don't really want to deal with the portal. You know,
Yeah.
everybody's doing it, man. You can change and it's free agency. You can go get what you need now. You don't have to necessarily wait on a kid to mature and season. Now you can just go pluck you a guy. And I'm not even saying it's got to be the top guy. You just might need a productive guy. You
Yeah.
know, I hated to see it, but Nebraska got Jamal Banks. I mean, that was a hell of a pick. You know what I'm saying? The guy's
Yeah.
a productive player. You did what you had to do and compensate him financially. Like, make a move like that. But hey, that's not my team. I can't. I'm not a Clemson fan. But just from the outside looking in, I think SMU could beat Clemson. I really do. I think now consistently, no, probably, but can they beat them? Yes, they can beat them. You know what I'm saying? And like you spoke to, Clemson's gonna give Florida State a challenge. Certain games that people just, how it is, man. You just play well against certain teams. Certain teams always play
Yeah.
well against you. So I think it'll be a good game. Um, I just don't think they have enough offensively, man. And we're both defensive players, and you got to call it what it is. It's an offensive game. Defense is secondary these days. Don't get me wrong. You got to play enough to win you a championship, but to get you a chance to win a championship, you got to be able to score points consistently every week. Because if not, that's why I picked Florida State. Miami. I think Cam Ward can outduel DJ. Just as a pure pocket quarterback and just throwing the ball all over the place, I think he can do better than DJ. I think you can kind of cancel out different matchups across the board. But if you just got to put it out there with two players going head to head, that's what it's going to come down to. Straight up,
Yeah,
two turnovers, a overthrow, or something like that is gonna basically lose the game for one of those guys. Because everything else is evenly matched. I mean, it's talent on talent. You can't. It ain't. If it's a drop off on any position, it's slight. It might just be experience. It ain't got nothing to do with any huge drop offs. It's quarterback for quarterback, man. Offensive
yeah,
coordinator for offensive coordinator. Head coach, head coach. What kind of decision? What kind of game plan you gonna come in? You gonna have some? You gonna get tricky? You gonna do the unthinkable? I mean, like those type moves. Like the closer you get to championships and the closer you get to good on good, that's when coaching really is what takes you over the top. Because again, it's good
yeah.
on good. It ain't no drop off either way. Both of them teams and coaches would take either or. Like, would you take that defensive end? Yeah, hell yeah, I recruited him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that to me, that's the defining piece. Quarterback play and coaching.
Man, you brought up a good point with coaching. Um, I'm looking at Alabama, and I'm wondering how long would it take, or what does Alabama's coach have to do? Can he live through hearing, well, Nick Saban would have done this? This is how Nick Saban would have done it. Nick Saban would have went for it. He would have thrown the ball on third down, or he would have ran it on this down. Can he survive that, create his own culture, or is he just the rebound coach until they find who they want? I mean, now they went out. They got the top guy at the time. He, coached at Washington, kind of turned their program around. But can he come in and survive that? I think about, and I know it's in the NFL, but I think about following those good coaches like a Bill Parcells, like a Bill Belichick. And, what do those coaches after that, what are they able to come in to do? And what was that thing? And while I do agree that it's coaching, and I think the focus has been on offense, but you and I talked about this off the air. It still comes down to, can your defense get off the field? Can they get off that field and get that? They may not dominate every single third down. They may not dominate the red zone, but can they do it at those critical times where that quarterback, he may still get off. He may still get his numbers, but are they shutting them down in the red zone? Are they making them kick field goals instead of getting touchdowns consistently? Because if you're that quarterback and you're getting in the red zone when that playbook shrinks and that field shrinks, are you able to put the ball in the end zone, and is that defense still coming off the field? Because to a defense in a lot of games, that field goal is, while you don't want to give up anything, that giving up a field goal instead of 6 against a great quarterback and a great offense, that does a lot for the momentum. And that's the one thing that stays undefeated in sports. That's momentum. And that defense, man, a turnover, a pick six, a sack, or a tackle for loss can be that one thing at the right time, can be that one thing that turns a team around. And that's one of those things why I looked at, Michigan in the Big Ten, just because, does Oregon – I'm just wondering, does Oregon – are they ready to strap it up and play that smash mouth? Now, Penn State has got a good team. I just look at Ohio State, and they're always going to – some of the – you got these blue blood programs. Every year Ohio State's going to get top recruits. But are they going to be able to mesh and gel enough now to play even a tougher schedule? That's the thing. I think more than anything, who's going to stay healthy? Who's going to gel? It's kind of those intangibles. We got the analytics, but it's those intangibles. Where's your team health-wise and mentally week 8? Where's your team health-wise and mentally? Again, we talked about week 2 where you've got who's that are talking about week 2? You got Texas and Michigan week 2. Well, where are they going to be psychologically and health-wise week 3 after that battle, after that team has shown up a little bit earlier than everybody else at camp? And again, you got that tough schedule that week 2, so you really hard on them in camp. They might not get no days off during training camp
But
just because you got so much at stake.
the silver lining for them, though, this time around, luckily for them, and for the future, is that they know they have the expanded playoffs. So it's
Yeah,
not like it used to be where it's like a week 2 loss was a season killer.
yeah,
Now, the talking football heads and the pundits, they've all recognized that that's not a bad loss. Now, don't get me wrong, you're
yeah,
not trying to go out there and get beat 60-0, but if you lose by 10, but it was a good close game, and people understand they were young. It was early in the season, but they rebound. Like we've seen plenty of teams go on and win championships from losing an early season matchup that people
yeah.
thought they were left for dead. So it's not definitely not out of the case, and I think that should keep them fired up. Like either way, we good. Like let's keep a standard for the season. Let's keep the goal to goal, and live with whatever comes. But I mean, don't make any mistake about it. Like them teams are going hard and trying to win it. I just think, you know, alignment can be good, better matchups can be good, but then you start talking about attrition, and you spoke to
Yep.
injuries. And so I think people kind of understand you always put the big dogs up top because, we've seen, I forgot who the starter, I think it was JT Barrett was the starting quarterback and Cardale Jones for Ohio
Yeah.
State ended up winning the
Yeah.
championship. Like, that's what depth does for you.
Yeah.
Taking a guy who can go start anywhere, he's sitting on the bench. So all the teams we spoke about, they have that to a certain degree now. I don't know about Florida State at quarterback. We saw what happened
That's
last year.
that and that I was going to point to that when their starter wasn't there, and I really think that if Florida State would have shown that they have just verbally come out and talked and said things like, well, we don't see much of a drop off with our backup, and really push that versus they themselves showing a little hesitation with their backup. I think that kind of hurt them. To your point, who has that that total team, and you and I know that it's very few positions in college football outside of quarterback where you're just going to be able to run an entire game and not come out to just really need to catch your breath. And I
Speaking
think that
about running, speaking about running too, we can't discredit the running game. Now that's
yeah,
kind of the part about college football that I love slightly more about the NFL. You still got explosive run games, and people still are going out trying to establish the run. Whereas
yeah,
in pros, it's more we're gonna pass to establish a run. In college, is still. So I think for teams like Michigan and Texas, early season, it's hard to establish the run. You might be got some different schemes. You might have some new people in key positions. Now you might have 4 new starters, but your center might be a first year starter. That's a big deal. You,
yeah,
you got somebody right over top of your head, and the simplest thing that you've done all your life, snapping the ball, is a hard task on ABC prime time. Everybody watching you. That's a
yeah,
hard thing to do.
yeah,
We sometimes oversees like simple things like that, but sometimes people crumble in those moments. And then
yeah,
sometimes heroes are made. That's sometimes you see people that plenty of times who is that dude? Next thing you know, he a household name. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? So I think you know trying to stay true to whatever brand this season calls for 2024 for every team, especially these teams in these big moments with these big games, is key because I think we both can see, and we've been a part of it. Sometimes big moments can cause you to get out of character too. You
yeah,
start maybe you kind of you lean more on the run, but for whatever reason, this game you coming out, you want to light it up, throw
yeah,
the team off rhythm. And we're creatures of habit. We understand the mission, but you doing something else. You've been talking about we gonna be smashed, mouth first 10 plays of the game. We passing. You know what I'm saying? But I want to make a point about Alabama, man. I think what's going to save Alabama, and I think success for them, if their fans are realistic and administration is realistic, I think 10 wins, 11. I think that's realistic. You know what I'm saying? You got a new face of the program. People don't know what. You got your diehard fans. You got your young mix of fans. But I think with their coach being younger, and kind of basically like if you get a young mind, then you can hit it big, or sometimes you fail. But some of these young minds, like a Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, people's like, why you hire him? But he's a young mind who ain't really worried about history. I got my thing, and I'm go, go, go. I'm doing what I'm doing. And speaking specifically about Alabama, their offensive coordinator, man, is fabulous, man. Ryan
Yeah.
Grubb is like, what I'm saying, real deal. Like I was watching Washington last year with some of the route concepts and stuff, man. It was crazy. Now don't get me wrong, you had Michael Penix throwing the ball, and that's kind of why I didn't mention Alabama because I'm like, is that scheme and Jalen Milroe, is that gonna mesh? Because I don't think he's a guy
Yeah.
that you want throwing the ball 30 times a game. For him to be at his best, I'm not saying he's not capable, but I think he got to be on the move. I think he got to be able to use some athleticism too. So, I can't really speak to how that's gonna mesh. I think that's my one question mark there. They, Alabama still they know what success looks like. So I never would discredit them. It's just like how quickly can they all get on the same page? And like when the bullets are real, you know what I'm saying? It's cool
Yeah.
when it's Bama on Bama. You know what I'm saying? It all look good then, but
And,
I
and
think it'll be interesting.
and to your point, man, I don't know if Alabama fans can stomach two losses. I'm not saying they can't. I just don't know because it's been a while since they're in this place of having a new coach that didn't come under another great coach in terms of, he's new to the conference. You're bringing in a new coordinator that wasn't there last year. Nick Saban is gone. He's enjoying his retirement from what it looks like. So that's why for me, I don't. I'm like you. I don't want to count them out, but at the same time, I just don't want to go ahead and give them that crown again because we saw Georgia was moving. Georgia was moving forward. They were kind of creating that. And again, now you got Texas coming in, and they got a lot on the line.
Yeah.
They've got a lot to prove, and so again, when I look at that schedule, man, it's a schedule for some great college football this season. That's why I'm excited about it, man, because I think we're going to get to really see a lot of teams that are eventually going to make it to the playoff, but they're going to be tested. So to me, you're going to really in every conference, man, from the Big Ten, the ACC, SEC, all the way down to the Big 12, whoever emerges as that conference champion. And again, you still got to play. You still got the conference championship game. You got to play that division rival. You got whoever's from the other division. So I think whoever makes that, man, you're going to see they have been tested, tried, and proven. And when you talk about coaches, there's going to be a lot of coaches out there with a lot of sleepless nights in those big game weekends because it's not just anymore where a Georgia can say we just knock off Alabama, we good. Well, nah, buddy, you got some teams and even Oklahoma can make a run. I mean, it's just it's so much out there where it's almost like the NFL, man, where every week you got to bring it. You can't take a week off.
It's funny how
And
that work, don't it, Smitty?
yeah,
Like the NFL, now they getting paid like the NFL. It's funny how that
yeah.
work, man.
And,
I say this though, man. It will be. It's refreshing to have, like you spoke to, like the regular season almost counting like some of these conference championship games. And I think, especially in the SEC, it was so top heavy that you were looking forward to like LSU, Alabama, a couple other games here and there, but basically you was looking forward to the SEC championship. You know
yeah.
what I'm saying? But I got to ask you about this, man. I got to ask you about this. Colorado, what they do?
I don't see it this year where they're going to. I mean, I think they're going to have a good season. I think Shador is going to put on a show this year. I think Travis Hunter is going to do his thing. Again, they're great individual players, but they have a lot that they have to gel quickly. You brought in Warren Sapp to help with your D line, and you made some other transition with your coaching, but I think that they're in a space now where when I look at these other matchups, it's kind of like I look at it like this, man. It's like when you buy a nice brand new car. Last year, Colorado was that shiny brand new Lambo. Nobody ever really seen it. But this year, we done seen it get dented up a little bit. Everybody's used to seeing it. And I just don't think they have enough to where what they're doing is going to outshine, that Texas Georgia matchup. I don't think it's going to outshine what's going on in Michigan because I think they'll be a bowl team
So,
for sure.
so in your opinion, what does success look like for them? What is the number where you're like, okay, that was legit. Like, could they win 9?
I could see maybe 9. I think 8 or 9 would make them look would be really great. Again, not getting to a bowl game last year. So I think 8 or 9 would be a victory for them. But are they bringing in the players that are going to sustain it? Because 8 or 9 for Colorado, considering the hype and the build up, is not. It's just not going to be enough because these other teams are just having better matchups. So 8 or 9 would be cool, but who will they end up playing in a bowl game? I just don't see them having the multiple pieces it take right now. But again, look at where they were a couple of years ago. You're talking, 1-11, 0-12. Deion comes in, makes these changes that I think are for the better. But again, the recruiting battle. Nobody's really talking about the recruits that they're bringing in the transfer portal. They got some players, but again, as you mentioned, the Florida State, the Miami, the Ohio States, those schools came in and they're getting the top players. They're getting last year. Deion, he wanted to shore up that offensive line, but the top two, the top left tackle and right tackle, they're not in Colorado. So what does he have? I think he has some great individual skill players. But as we saw, Colorado's an example. Skill players are just not enough. You don't bring in Warren Sapp just for shits and giggles. Coach Sanders understands the importance of having those guys up front. He understands that clearly. But I just don't see the pieces coming together like I see at some of the top schools. But I don't think the playoff is their goal this year. But again, after this year, you losing Travis Hunter, you losing Shador, you losing what's Deion's son at safety. You're losing Shiloh, and so you're losing a lot of players. So a team that wins 8 or 9 this year, that would be great. But then you're losing that core; they're gone.
And they're not even going to play in a bowl game. If they win 8 or 9 games, they're not playing in a bowl game.
They're not playing. Shador's not playing. Travis Hunter's not. So
So
again, I think it.
you be
I
good
think
naked after 12 games, basically. Essentially, you know what I'm saying? You're going to be starting right back over in theory.
all over again. But they're honestly talking about if USC's coaches don't really step up and put them in a place of winning 10, 11 games this year, he may be one of the top picks for the USC job. Now, will he take it? I don't know, but so much of what was
I think
you think he'll take it?
Yeah, I think he take it. If your son leaving and USC has the top quarterback in 2026, kid out of my not far from my hometown, kid named Julian Lewis, and he's real deal. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
the irony of that, what you just said is, although Julian he committed like last January, it might not be the day, but let's say sometime around then. He's still been
Yeah.
taking recruiting visits in Colorado. He's been there a few times. I mean, you never know. Stranger things can happen.
That's true. But
I
but you
just
but
the
you
one thing
can't
I'll say
play.
about Deion, I think what he messed up at was just his staff. And I'm not saying they're bad, but to basically demote your offensive coordinator halfway through the season, which you could tell what happened with the team or whatever. I don't know, man. It takes a lot for a coach to admit a mistake. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And so we obviously aren't in those meeting rooms, so we don't know how bad of a mistake that was. People don't really know, but the coaches meetings, like sometimes it come with throwing hands, everything. You know what I'm saying? It ain't just like, oh man, that play didn't work. Like it's like we
Yeah.
get real in there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So and then you seeing your
Yeah.
son just getting pummeled. So I mean, it's a lot, man. It's a lot of dynamics that is. I don't know, man. But it'll be interesting. I mean, I say they got talent. I think getting them fast start. Hopefully, their portal usage they've been getting depth because we saw last year I think they had enough to start a few games, but they didn't have enough to finish the season. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting, man. But you got to talk about Dion. I mean, he put himself out there like that, and I think he's elevated college football just him being around. You know what I'm saying? His
And
sons,
yeah,
good players. So I think he's been a breath of fresh air. But I also want to see him succeed too. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying?
And you ask a good question. What does success look like for Colorado and for Coach Sanders this year? And I think realistically, I'll go along with you. I think if they hit that 8-9 win mark, that's a huge success considering, he's basically had to come in and build from the ground up. And, I think he's done a good job. I think, when I follow him on social media and they're building something there. And, when you having to really dig into that offensive line, when you're talking about changing up your offensive coordinator midway through the season, and I think, people have to get used to those Colorado State games coming down to the wire. I want to see them. Who can they blow out this year? I want to see them really pummel a team versus it coming down to the last play or an overtime game against an unranked opponent. Can they get over that hump? Can they learn how to play around that hype? I'll tell you something I've seen, though. I've seen fewer celebrities around the program than the previous season at this time. Like, this time last year, that sideline was like the BET Awards. You know what I'm saying? So I think this year some of that has kind of pulled back. And I think it's because of the players. I think, some of those things can be a bit of a distraction. But, again, you got to know that going into it. But I think if they get 8 or 9 wins, which I think is possible, it's possible.
I just hope that he got better players out of the portal. I think he was getting
Yeah.
some guys that were so far down the depth chart at a Florida State and some of these other schools have got names, but I mean, man, if we're getting the 4th-string DN, I mean, hell, we might as well have kept the dude that we had, technically. you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and I think it showed up. I think they played as hard and as well as they could early, and I think some of the deficiencies in some of those guys just showed. I mean, so I just would hope that some of the guys he got work out better this year. I'll say it that way.
Yeah. And I think he gets that the key to college football success is development. Can you develop players? Can you,
Foundation too.
help
Understand
this?
that if you don't have an offensive defensive line, I don't care who
Yeah.
you got a quarterback. You're gonna die.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, man. And I think he's going to build that development in, and I think bringing in Warren Sapp and some others are some things. When you talk about making coaching changes, it's not just they were a bad coach, but I think in college you got to really work on putting together a program that develops players that get better each and every year. So, but before we get out of here, man, we got the Olympics coming up. I think the open ceremony is coming up on Friday, and the Olympic basketball team the men's team had a scare. The women's team lost to the WNBA All Stars, but I'm looking for a lot of different sports, man. We got some short jockey athletes participating in swimming that are going to do well. I'm even going to check out Simone Biles in gymnastics. But I really want to see the one event I'm looking forward to is seeing can Sha'Carri Richardson. I want to see her take that women's 100 meters. I know she's got a couple other events, but I really like a great comeback story, and she's been dominating the sprints this season. So my one event that I'm looking forward to is seeing her dominate that 100-meter sprint and bring home that gold medal. What about you? What's the one sport event that you're looking for?
Uh man. To be honest, it's always been track, man. I think
Yeah.
the track events, men's and women's, are always just super pressure filled and just high energy, and you really kind of can't wait to see it. But I'm for on the male side, that 100 and 200, man.
Yeah.
You start you seeing cats from Great Britain and all these different places. I mean, they losing, but they still running world class times. But
Yeah.
that is the build up to it. You know what I'm saying? You're seeing all the prelims, and then you just see cats just go out there and do their thing, man. And, obviously we always got some guys who do well in the sprints, but like I said, man, you just see people from random places. See a dude from Taiwan up there, man, running a 10.5. He might be dead last running 10.5. That's crazy. You know what I'm saying? It's still a crazy speed, but you know what I mean. But I'm a track and field guy.
Yeah, man, they call it the most exciting 10 seconds ever in sports. The most exciting, man. And what's interesting to me is you spend 4 years, particularly in track, you spend 4 years training for 10 seconds. That can change your whole life.
And their workouts are ridiculous.
I don't even want to talk about that, man. That's crazy, man. Between track and swimming, when you're talking about a full body workout, that's a whole nother level. They're a whole different type of athlete altogether. But I'm excited about it, man. Pace has been dope, man. Getting back together, we're gonna do this again next week. I think we can jump into a few different things. I think we have some stuff on the Olympics to talk about. I think, with the NFL kicking off again, they're going to play some early games. We got the Hall of Fame game coming up. We can dive into that. So everybody tune in next week. We got a lot more to talk about. We're going to chop it up together. So looking forward to it, man. Any closing remarks, things you want to throw out there, Pace, before we get out of here?
Oh, man. Nah, man. Just get ready for the action coming back here basically next Thursday. That's Hall of Fame game.
Hall of Fame game. We got to jump back on and talk about it. I know I'm gonna be tuning in. I'm excited to get the season kicked off and to see where we go with this NFL season. Got a lot of changes, and we'll talk about it then.
All right, bet, man.